gender subject. Yeah, no, just to make it clear. And then I think we don't have this kind of problem anymore that you have to kind of to compare cultures, because this is definitely a global problem. I mean, also in Switzerland we got like the same care work discussion, and so yeah, we're also out of this kind of cultural discussion.
I just wanted to make 2 points very shortly relating to that discussion. I think we have to be careful to separate the forces of capitalism from the forces of patriarchy, and then analyze how they interact. And they strongly interact. I think it's a very important dimension. If we're speaking about mining, if we speak about capitalism, to see how patriarchy feeds into it. But that doesn't mean that we cannot address the 2 issues separately. If we see in one society the problem is rather here, in the other society it's rather on the other side, then it might be wise to start from there. And the second point is that I don't see patriarchy as a cultural phenomenon, it's a societal phenomenon. And if we reduce it to culture, we lose the capability to critique it and address it.
We have 2 more. It's on the same issue. So I'll just take one more on the same issue and then have another question from us.
I understand every woman who fights for women's rights. And I do think that more women should reach the top level of decision-making positions. Nevertheless, I think we should think more about what kind of people, what sort of mindset of people reach the top and why, and how we can change that, male or female. When I look at Hillary, I'm just not that happy. I'm not happy with Trump either.
I'm a trade unionist, and a short question to Caroline. All the trade unions, the mine workers' trade unions, are aware of the problems of women working in the mines, and how do they react, and how do work together with the trade unions. And the question to Doro, these initiatives for responsibility of the global enterprises, is there foreseen also special clauses on the effects that economic activities of these companies have on women? We can take the example of women in mines now, but in the textile industry, you know there is huge problems also. Are there special clauses on the effects on women?
Okay. I know that NUMSA, they are trying to address these issues of women in the mining, and they also
speak up, because it's not just me.
Okay, it's not working. Okay, so I was saying that I know that NUMSA is also trying to address this question of women in the mining, but the problem is many women who are working in the mine, as I've indicated earlier, they are actually having those short-term contracts, and most of them they're not even allowed to join the trade unions. They work as cleaners, they work as tea ladies, and that, so it's a very big problem. And so NUMSA we've been trying to engage in a number of occasions with NUMSA to see how can we help women who are working in the mine, but also some of the women, they are scared to come out and talk about the violations that they are facing because they're afraid to lose their jobs. So this is the challenge, and we have National Union of Mine Workers, which is working closely with government. It doesn't want anything to do with the civil society, and recently there is AMCO that is very working close with the civil society, and we're hoping that through AMCO we will actually get to the number of women who are working in the mine and start working working together, because this other unit is just working with government and they don't actually do anything about the issues of, you know, women who are affected. It is health and safety, or, you know, right to like fair payment, because you still find some of the women that are doing the same jobs as men, but there's earning less than men. And we haven't got to the point of addressing those issues because they're not coming out very clearly, even though we know that they're there, but people are afraid to talk about those issues openly.
Oh, you mentioned the responsible initiative has not any closure directly about women, but we hope that also the work of women in industry will be affected positively by the initiative, but it is not a feminist initiative in the sense of having some specific issues on women.
Thank you very much. I've been listening to presentations that we've heard since last night and the two that we've had this morning. And you know, the whole time I've been thinking that this is a very interesting topic, but also that it's not new in terms of, you know, the critical questions that we're asking. This brings us back to, you know, an issue that has been, you know, written about and spoken about in academic circles. How is it that, you know, Africa, or in this case we're talking about South Africa, a country with so much resources, how is it that it fails to transform this wealth into, you know, development, real development? And what we've had, you know, different speakers talking about, you know, the problems at various levels, at the international level, at the level of the global economy, at the level of, you know, the state and its interaction with capital. And then, as Caroline is talking about, how this then goes on to impact on, you know, the everyday lives of members of the community. And to me, you know, at least when I look at the various issues, I really liked, you know, the approach that Dick spoke about. You know, how do we, you know, when you have workers, are they conscious about this? This is a question that has been asked just now. Are workers conscious about this? Because we are dealing with a system, a capitalist system that he has talked about, which you know, at various levels we have people with vested interests, and from the community level to government, and then the international capitalist system. And so we have people like us here in this room who are discussing about these problems. But we have real stumbling blocks at every level. When we talk about the international community, we begin to ask about the position of the Swiss government or the German government vis-a-vis the companies, German companies that are doing business in South Africa. And when you try to change that system, it offsets, you know, trade, it offsets business, it offsets the benefits that are accrued to Germany, for instance, or to Switzerland. So you have problems at all these levels. What the question for me is, after, you know, when we talk about these, and it looks like we hitting a brick wall. At whatever point that we try to engage this question, we get to a point where we're asking ourselves, then what? You know? And for me, the most critical question to be answered at such a forum, or any other forum that seeks to address these questions, what then where should our focus be on if we are trying to change how, you know, the state of affairs, if we're trying to change the status quo, where should the main focus be? And this takes me back to the incidents at Marikana. Okay. The reason, to me, the reason why the state reacted in that way, shooting 34 workers, is because the state is complicit. And workers, by demanding, a new format, a new way of, trying to redistribute the wealth that is coming out of platinum mines, the government reacts in a very violent way. But to me, this is the starting point. It's very difficult to try and make the international community to, adjust, to change all the pressure that people are piling on, whether it be it on the Swiss government or German government. When you have a state that is complicit, a group of people, African members of government who are benefiting from this system, which is going right up to the highest point in the global economy, then you have a problem. And to me, this is why the intervention with the workers themselves and them understanding how the things that they are mining, the minerals that they're extracting from the ground, how they then operate, how they, and empowering workers at that level and their families. But then it also goes back to, destabilizing the states themselves, and they are going to be, as the Americans. So I think this, in the end, I know it's one long blabber that I've said, but it brings us back to the very critical issues. Where do we look? What is our best source of hope in this very sad story? So it's not a question perhaps, but just
Thank you, Brian. You saved them for what I wanted to, because we're reaching to the end. We didn't discuss it, but I wanted to change power relations and ask you to formulate 2 questions to the audience. But we won't have time for that, so you saved on this one. What I think is very important, on what Brian just recapitulated on the whole discussion we have is, I'm not sure we have to define what are the most important points where to really hit our head constantly to crack that wall. But I think it's important that we are aware of the different levels where we can be active and ask ourselves, where can I be active? I think this is something that I hear a lot from communities themselves when they talk about these big issues, and they are only a small community. So, and this is very important to keep in mind. I'd like to thank you very much for your both presentations. I really hope we come back to them constantly as we're going on during the day. Do you want to add something on logistics?